Greetings to you wherever you are in the world. My name is Wendy Osborne, Senior Consultant with IAVI, and on behalf of IAVI and the Emirates Foundation, I am delighted to welcome you to this session in our virtual Global Forum series. We are delighted to have had over 1,300 people register for the series from across 112 countries. The COVID-19 pandemic has emphasized how volunteers as agents of change provide the practical action that builds hope and resilience, improves lives, and strengthens communities. The pandemic resulted in the postponement of the October 2020 IAVI World Volunteer Conference to be hosted by the Emirates Foundation in Abu Dhabi. The conference will now be held in the autumn of 2021. However, the conference theme chosen for 2020 of volunteering together to enable change and create a better world has never been more relevant or more real. As part of the preparations for the conference, the Emirates Foundation had agreed to support the writing of 7 context papers on the conference sub-themes. Although the conference has been postponed, this project has continued. It aims to provide opportunity for greater consideration of important issues, including with relevance to volunteering and COVID-19, and to enable wider dissemination of knowledge that will add value to those supporting and developing volunteering around the world. The context papers will be published and available between July and December 2020. The publication of each of these papers is aligned to the series of virtual global forums. I would like to pay tribute to Dr. Monica Rosso, the author of the context paper associated with today's forum. It is an excellent piece of work, and I commend it to you. We hope the forums will be of interest to volunteer-involving organisations, academics, policymakers, corporations, and volunteers. A copy of the relevant published context paper will be provided to each person who registers for a forum. Following each webinar, the paper and the forum recording will be made available to anyone interested. If you missed any of the previous webinars, please go online to access the information. Now to some technical information. On the screen, you will see an overview of the meeting room controls. There are 2 points to highlight. If you're having trouble with your computer's audio, try using your phone by selecting phone call under the audio tab. Most importantly, there will be a question and answer session as part of this forum. So send in your questions by using the questions tab. No need to wait to pose questions. You can write them at any time. As I said, this is a forum series, and there will be another 2 webinars between now and December. Check out the dates and please put them in your diaries. Today's forum is the topic of corporate volunteering, delivering business objectives through a values-focused mission. The issue of aligning corporate volunteering to business objectives is not new. However, what is increasingly relevant is how corporate volunteering is being aligned with meeting the expectations of employees and a range of community stakeholders. It is important to explore how we can enhance this shared sense of social purpose. I am therefore delighted that today's moderator comes with the right experience and expertise to lead us through the rest of this forum. Diane Solinger is a member of the IAVI Board of Directors and serves as chairperson for the Global Corporate Volunteer Council. She has over 25 years of experience in the social sector and led Google's global employee giving and volunteering programs for 4 years, prior to focusing on corporate communications, corporate culture, and learning and development program management. Finally, I take this opportunity on behalf of IAVI and the Emirates Foundation to thank you, Diane, and our other distinguished panel members for your input today. I know this is going to be a great session. It is now over to you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Wendy, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you all for taking time out of your morning, afternoon, or evening to join us for this important conversation around delivering business outcomes and objectives through values-based missions around corporate volunteering. I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote presenter, and Dr. Monica Rosso will be joining us. Hopefully all of you had a chance to peruse or read even more thoroughly the white paper that she created in this subject matter. But for over 10 years, Lonneke has focused on impact first and impact only initiatives associated with companies to create positive social change, with a particular interest in corporate volunteering. So, as an assistant professor and a strategy consultant for companies, I think her background and also her insights to help us all, either as practitioners in corporations or those who want to work with companies in a corporate volunteering capacity, give us a sense on how to bring those two things together, volunteering and the corporate mission, and ensure that we're collaborating to make the world a better place. So I'm going to pass it to Dr. Roza, to Lonneke, to have her share her insights. And after she speaks, we'll move into a panel discussion. Don't forget to ask questions in the question tab, and I'll hand it over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Diane. Thank you so much. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm currently residing in the Caribbean, so for me it's 9 o'clock in the morning. A warm welcome to everyone who's joining in today. And I would like to start my contribution with the question, so why is it so important that we talk about delivering business objectives through a value-focused mission? And that these business objectives now, more than ever, must be focused on social value. And after this contextualization, I will briefly like to discuss the role of corporate volunteering in delivering on a values-focused mission, and conclude with a perspective that, at least for me, is the ultimate reason why corporate volunteering should play a role in a transformation towards a values-focused mission. And I know Wendy already mentioned it, but the full paper, including more details and examples and information, is available on the IAVA website. So let me start with the context. I think we all realize, and Wendy also mentioned it before, 2020 was an unprecedented year. The recent pandemic of COVID-19 and the expectation that there will be many more grand challenges, including more pandemics in the future, increasingly makes us realize how fragile we are as a species and how interconnected we are and must be with the planet and the communities around us. At the same time, we see that people around the globe are becoming more active to signal their voices on important issues in society. So most of us have probably seen the demonstrations in many big cities around the world on Black Lives Matter, and others may also know, for instance, Greta Thunberg and the many youngsters that have been demonstrating in cities around the world with a call to action on climate change. And also, even with COVID-19, people are worried about the measures taken to fight the pandemic, resulting in online and offline activism. And while most of these instances may be executed by people as private citizens, we also see more and more people in their roles as employees that become more activists, even against the company that they work with. So some speak up, some demonstrate publicly, and others leave the organization in resentment. All examples of using your voices as employees. And at the same time, we also notice that employees and job seekers who have the luxury to choose their employer say that they would rather work for a company that live their values, particularly around the contributions towards society. Here they connect and engage with companies who have similar values and beliefs. And research around the globe have shown that these people who are more engaged through shared values will go the extra mile for their employers. And a similar pattern can be observed with consumers. Consumers are more inclined to buy products and services from companies that are socially responsible. They increasingly find it important that they purchase from companies who have similar values, including what they do on social issues. And a study among 8 global markets found that 83% of consumers feel that a company should not earn a profit unless it also delivers a positive impact towards society. And this is consistent with other studies across the globe. And therefore, values are important for organizations and their stakeholders. And these values are implicit guides for our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And this is also exactly what our global leaders increasingly realize. They see that companies need to step up, think and act more in line with social value, and take various stakeholder perspectives into account while running their businesses. It's simply no longer accepted that businesses take a narrow view on their stakeholders and merely look at shareholder value, or in other terms, only in financial value. And as a result, in some parts of the world, the CEOs of multinational companies pledge that they will include the interest of all stakeholders, not only their shareholders. And the next couple of years will be the proof of the pudding, as every aspect of businesses should be transformed to include these interests. And that is not an easy transformation. Now, with this introduction, we can talk about many aspects of doing business, but I will focus on corporate volunteering, and with good reason. I see an excellent opportunity for corporate volunteering to support companies in delivering their increasingly values-focused mission, and for companies and their stakeholders an opportunity to align on their values. And it is this alignment on values that is crucial to build a long-term relationship, either it be with customers, with your employees, or with your wider community. Values help individuals, groups, and organizations to define what is good and bad and what is right and wrong. Thus, you can see values as a compass for a long-term relationship, deep relationships. And it is this long-term relationship that gives companies their legitimacy. And again, therefore, it's important for companies to signal their values. And corporate volunteering is an immersive learning experience that can co-create values to help better understand stakeholder values, such as employees' values and community values. And as we would say in Dutch, we plant seeds in thoughts and belief systems that allows us to increasingly act upon these more inclusive belief systems. Before I go more in detail on the immersive learning experience, I would like to briefly touch upon the two approaches that companies currently take to deliver on their values-focused mission through corporate volunteering, and how they signal their values through corporate volunteering. And these approaches seem to follow each other up, depending on the times that we live in. So for one, corporate volunteering can have a top-down approach, policy-driven approach. And in this approach, the company aligns the CSR program to their overall purpose statement or to one or more sustainable development goals that the company has chosen. But the company says, this is what we find important, this is what we want to work on. And it's very much directed by what the company wants to contribute to society on particular social issues. And this has the advantage for the company that the social impact or the change that is being created is more easily to communicate to stakeholders. And to many, it feels very logical. It oftentimes aligns with what the company is doing with their business. And the value congruence here, thus, is sought through an inside-out approach. This is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we value, and want to align with you, community stakeholders, on those values. And the other approach is more a bottom-up approach, where the starting point is the community need or the community interests, the community value, community values. That may not lead up to contributing to one particular sustainable development goal or one particular social issue, but oftentimes leads to a diversified corporate volunteering program, where local business units work closely with local community organizations on what matters most in their local community. You can imagine that an overall story on the totality of these community projects might not be easy to share as it's more dispersed, right? So, though value congruence does take place too, albeit from an outside-in approach. So we start from the community and then look, how can we align to those community values? Thus, in both approaches, and including a mix of these approaches, as many companies in practice have a mix of these approaches, might lead to value congruence with the company, with employees, the wider community, and even with consumers too. Though, as the trend in sustainability practices more broadly is that companies need to take an outside-in approach. What is happening in society and how can we contribute to that? So if we translate that to corporate volunteering, it might well be that in the next couple of years, also the outside-in approach, so starting with the community interest and community values, and look how you can contribute to that, might become more prevalent in more parts of the world. And after all, this approach has the starting point of the community needs in the heart of the program. But whatever approach you are currently taking, you can also enrich the volunteer experience. And this leads to my last element in this presentation. And perspective on corporate volunteering that, in my opinion, will help businesses increasingly deliver on our value-focused mission and therefore deserve more attention. And that is transformative learning through corporate volunteering. And in this perspective, corporate volunteering is not seen as an activity in which the volunteer gives back to the community. Rather, it is an experience in which the volunteer learns more about the community and the role the volunteer itself plays as an individual, as part of that community. Corporate volunteering provides an excellent setting to reflect on the self and your role in the community, albeit in the role of a private citizen or as an employee. And here it helps to develop important skills related to emotional intelligence, such as self-awareness, empathy, and social skills. The development of emotional intelligence leaders does not take place along one-dimensional linear career paths. Instead, it evolves as individual processes the contradictions, the dilemmas, and crises that they encounter, and consciously coping with these dilemmas, contradictions, and crises, and incorporating them into their identities. Corporate volunteering can create an immersive learning environment that is capable of fostering the type of learning needed to develop emotional intelligent leaders. And we need these emotional intelligent leaders in the future to become more inclusive and diversified. So we need these leaders in our businesses. And volunteer experiences provide such multidimensional experiences in which you encounter these contradictions and dilemmas upon which you can reflect. You can do that alone, but also with your colleagues, of course. And therefore, these volunteer experiences will have spillover effects on the attitudes and values, and also on the respective behavior of employees in the long term, with regard to, let's say, social issues, such as pollution, climate change, diversity and inclusion, etc., etc. And more so, it helps people to connect their personal experiences, thoughts, beliefs, and values with those of others. So basically what I'm arguing here is that corporate volunteering is an excellent immersive learning experience that supports the development of more inclusive and responsible leadership throughout the organization, an increasingly important element in delivering on a values-focused mission, and to include stakeholders in everyday decision-making. And yes, this is happening in practice, and there are really good examples where this corporate volunteering experience actually changed employees' lives, their career paths, and their leadership. But to me, it deserves far more attention, as transformation of systems needs transformation from the within, from our belief systems, and thus from the employees themselves. And therefore, I believe that corporate volunteering can help businesses deliver on a value-focused mission, perhaps even far more than we might think. I hope you'll enjoy the panel discussion with the experts in the field, and for now, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lonneke. And we do have a question, but I think we might toss it to the panel and have you, of course, join us in that as well. So I'll take a moment now to move us to the next part of our program here and introduce our panelists. We've got a great global panel of practitioners from all over the world, and excited to introduce first and foremost, Kinjal Jain and Justin Land. Kenjal is joining us from the Tata Group. She is the person behind the scenes driving the implementation of their group level volunteer program called Tata Engage. Justin is joining us from Dow Chemical's Global Citizenship team, and he leverages the company's innovation technology and employee expertise, so skills-based volunteering, and works towards building a culture of inclusion to generate transformational social impact. We'll also have Cyril Treacy and Fred Sadia joining us. Cyril is Vice President, Center of Excellence Nonprofit and Education Clouds at Salesforce.org. He's based in Dublin. And we have Fred joining us. He is the Secretary and National Coordinator to the Volunteer Involving Organization Society in Kenya. And in his role, he's led the organization to establish partnerships with regional and international volunteer groups such as IAPE and other organizations. Kinjal, will you please take your 5 minutes to introduce your perspective to this topic? My apologies.
Thank you so much, Diane. It's a great pleasure to be part of this panel. Like you said, it's a global panel from all over the world. There are corporates that have been doing some amazing work that are presented here. I'm happy to start now. So Tata Group, I represent the Tata Group. Tata Group is a 152-year-old large salt to software conglomerate, which I mean is that every industry under the sun has a company under Tata Group, from Tata Consultancy Services to Jaguar Land Rover to Tata Consumer Products to Voltas to many such companies with a market valuation of about $160 billion. Volunteering is said to be part of the Tata employees' DNA and has been undertaken since the group's inception. The group's mission statement itself is to improve the quality of life of the companies we serve globally through long-term stakeholder value creation based on leadership with trust. So we put communities at the heart of everything that we do, and volunteering specifically channelizes the group's most valuable asset, which is our 700,000 employees all across the world towards social good, and thereby contributes towards this mission very directly. Today, we are one of the largest corporate volunteering programs in the world, with clocking about 1.52 million hours every year. We have, but the disappointing part is that we have only 2 hours per capita, which shows that we need to get more employees into the fold, their family members and retirees, to be able to increase their participation levels. We are hoping to increase it in the coming years, and the vision of the program is to be the best corporate volunteering program in the world by 2025, but both in quality and in numbers. I'm part of Tata Sustainability Group. We were formed in 2014, wherein we launched the group level volunteering program, Tata Engage, which is a vibrant platform that kindles, nurtures, and channelizes the volunteering spirit at Tata. So basically, what I mean by that is it's a group level program for all Tata company employees, their family members, and retirees to come together and take up causes that are very close to their heart. There are structured programs under this. One of it is called Tata Volunteering Week, which is celebrated across a 4-week period for twice in a year. The objective of this initiative is to encourage and inspire Tata volunteers who have never experienced volunteering within their community. So the idea is to get them out of their office, work in teams, do something that is experiential in nature and not necessarily too difficult, but just getting them to giving them a platform to get started. They typically spend half a day carrying out volunteering work in groups, and they can choose from a centralized pool of opportunities and participate in activities that are organized across the globe. We also conduct a survey, and I don't know, Diane, if that answers, but probably we'll take it up in the panel, is that when we conduct a survey at the end of every Tata Volunteering Week, we discovered that 20% were first-time volunteers, which means that they have never volunteered before. And about 97% feel positive. So either they feel good about themselves, they feel good about being part of the company, or they feel good about being part of the Tata Group and making a difference in some way or the other in the community. We can't say we've made an impact because these are very short-term volunteering activities, but at least, feeling like I've done something today to help somebody. And 98% would like to continue to volunteering in the future. The second program that we have is a part-time skill-based volunteering program, ProEngage, which pairs volunteers for extended periods and on personal time with NGOs. These are, again, to embody the track record of skills that all employees have across various fields like human resources, marketing, coding, MIS building, strategy. So the idea is to build the capability of the NGOs or the organizations or schools or communities that we're working with using the professional skills of the volunteers. And again, through the survey, we realized that 51% applied the skills that they have gained in ProEngage at their workplace. 81% NGOs reported that the pro-engage projects have created long-lasting impact, which means that the benefits of the project will be seen later in the year. And uh, and they feel that they have had a considerable amount of cost saving because of the professional expertise that was provided. The third one, which is a more immersive program, is disaster response. The group leverages the employee volunteers whenever we are responding to any disaster that has taken place across the globe. And these are called core volunteers, where they spend a minimum of 7 to 10 days in disaster affected areas as part of Tata teams and execute the response through needs assessment. They could be doing preparation and distribution of relief kits. They conduct medical camps. And this is one of the program that we're very proud of, and it's been going very well. So that's a short brief about our program. And for us, this topic is very important in the coming years, because while we have had the program for 5 years now and it's going very well, the idea is to start looking at impact and the communities, and start looking at how that is bringing about a change in the communities that we're working with. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Kenjal. I just cannot get over the possibilities of engaging 600,000-700,000 employees around the world and creating that connection, that empathy building that Dr. Rosso was talking about. It's really quite powerful if you can unlock all that. So thank you for sharing your perspectives there. Justin, let's hand it over to you for your perspectives from your vantage point, both from Dow, but also you're super engaged in your community, so you probably have a perspective from both sides of the fence.
Well, thank you so much, Diane, and the entire IAVE team. I mean, this is, if there's a year to learn from each other, this is it. So thank you all for this forum and conversation. So before I dive in, I want to give everyone just a little bit of an overview of who Dow is. This is a topic as a whole that is really woven through our DNA just as much as probably the other companies that are represented on the line as well. So Dow is a material science company based in Midland, Michigan, and we operate about 110 manufacturing sites in 31 different countries around the world. And in total, we have about 37,000 employees. And as I mentioned, giving back, making a difference in our communities is really part of the DNA of every member of Team Dow. And so our portfolio of plastics, industrial intermediates, coatings, and silicones businesses deliver a broad range of science-based products and solutions for our customers all around the world and high growth market segments, such as packaging, which I'll talk about shortly, infrastructure and consumer care. And it's important to point out, especially during this year, that several of these products have been critical in our fight against COVID, whether it's with PPE, hand sanitizer, cleaning materials, or the necessary equipments that hospitals need every single day. And so when we think about volunteerism, we also think much deeper into the science-based solutions that we're delivering. And so whether it's in our labs or in our communities, our employees really are driven to make that difference. And really woven through our company is our company's ambition. And that's to become the most innovative, customer-centric, inclusive, and sustainable material science company in the world. And at its core is our team of 37,000 employees that are a mix of diverse and inclusive individuals to really solve some of these big challenges that we're all facing. And so two of these challenges that I want to talk about as it relates to volunteerism is plastic waste and racial injustice. And so with plastic waste, it's a huge issue around the world. And not just Dow, but really everyone has an opportunity to help solve this issue and advance a more circular economy. And so a couple years ago, we launched a campaign called Pulling Our Weight. And this unique initiative aims to increase awareness around responsible waste management and engage our employees and communities in addressing plastic pollution. Over the course of these few short years, it's become the largest employee volunteer event for a single cause in our history. And it's helped demonstrate our company's commitment to a cleaner environment and a better world. And so what we've really learned during this campaign this year, where we're faced with a lot of restrictions in terms of gatherings, and we're a company that really is with our #1 priority being safety. We've had to balance the challenges, but this year we have already collected 1 million pounds of waste in cleanups around the world. And we've seen it really help out and become a tool also in our disaster relief efforts. Our company's hometown of Midland, Michigan endured a 500-year flood, and pulling our weight has become a great tool to rally Team Dow, but also help our community recover. But one of the big shifts this year that we've seen due to COVID is the stress on individual action and the virtual nature of our world. So we joined one of our partners, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, for their all-together global cleanup. And so this effort brought together 48 different companies and organizations across 73 different countries for this effort. And we're proud that Team Dow had about 200 participants around the world. We're able to collect 6,300 pieces of litter during this effort. And this is just one small piece in a much bigger pulling our weight effort that we have. The second kind of issue that I want to talk about that's important not just to the company, but also to our volunteer efforts is racial injustice. This has been a brewing kind of challenge and issue that we've been facing for years and decades, but has come to the tipping point this year. And so we've pledged to help accelerate change, and we developed a plan called Dow Acts, which is focused on advocacy, community, and talent. And it's a bold framework that really is designed to address systemic racism and inequality within our company, but also in the communities where we live, work, and play. And this strategic framework was informed by our ERGs, especially the Global African Affinity Network, and the full support of our leadership team and board of directors. But the key piece I want to zone in on is around community, which with volunteers woven through it. So for the first time, Martin Luther King Day in the United States will be a paid holiday and an opportunity for a day of service for our employees. And this is huge. This is it embraces our ambition of inclusion. It addresses the challenges of our time. And and I know with COVID, there's going to be some challenges that we have, but what I've seen throughout this year is how agile our employees are to serve and make a difference. The other that aligns with our Dow Acts efforts and informed by it is our U.S. civic duty and engagement pay policy. For the first time, Dow employees will have time off to be able to go vote, but also to be engaged in the civic process. And so we've been working really hard with our government affairs team on different opportunities for employees to become engaged in the civic process. So happy to be here. Look forward to the discussion in a bit, and really looking forward to learning from each other. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate those examples of where you're focusing and aligning to your values, and also aligning to what you do as a company, particularly with the Pull Your Weight program and plastic waste. I think that's wonderful, and that pivot towards supporting hospitals with PPE and frontline healthcare workers, I think is just admirable, and something we all need. So thank you. We'll pass it over to Cyril now, who will share his perspectives from Salesforce.org and the work that they're doing. Cyril?
Hi, folks. Nice to meet you all. My name is Cyril Treacy. I joined Salesforce 20 years ago, and 21 years ago when the company was formed. We signed up for the 111 pledge, which was 1% of employees' time, 1% of our equity, and 1% of our product would be shared with good causes. And over the last 21 years, the organization has put this at the heart of what we are, and our CEO strongly believes that the business of business is to improve the state of the world. And we've done this since the very start. Back when we were a small organization that didn't have a big impact. Now that we are a 54,000 person software organization in over 70 countries, we now have 1.1 million hours of volunteering that's logged every year that has skills-based volunteering. So we also have salesforce.org, which is our philanthropic organization, and it works with nonprofits and educators. We have over 40,000 change makers that are using Salesforce technology to fundraise, run programs, manage the impact of those programs, and do digital engagement, as well as many nonprofit universities that are using us to help educate and give educators the ability to drive more equality. We have also over the years increased the amount of time available to employees. So now every employee gets 7 days paid time off to help with their causes they're passionate about. Last weekend I ran the Dublin Marathon, and I ran 4 marathons and raised over $50,000 in memory of my mother who passed from cancer. So whatever causes you're passionate about, you can work with. I've served on 2 nonprofit boards, and I've also been bitten with the volunteering bug, and I've logged over 1,400 hours since I joined the company, helping many different causes. And it's something that we've been very passionate about as an organization. We want to help drive this philanthropic gene, as we call it. And we also have solutions called Philanthropy Cloud, which is where organizations like Accenture and Deloitte can use our technology to help encourage volunteers and through their organizations. And on top of that, we also have Pro Bono, which is where we help you deploy our technology. We actually have our Pro Bono week on this week, where any organization can get an hour of free guidance about how best to use Salesforce to help run their programs. And we're also very much focused on equality for all. It's another passion of Salesforce. We've actually put together a racial equality task force that we're going to fund with $200 million to help drive more equality for people of color, and we're going to commit 1 million hours of volunteering to that cause. So that's just a brief overview of what Salesforce does in terms of volunteering.
Thank you, Cyril. It's very comprehensive, and that commitment from your CEO and that roundedness of the program has been, like you said, since the beginning of the company. And thanks for your personal commitment too. You're showing up yourself as a volunteer. I'm glad you got the volunteer bug. I'll pass it over to Fred, who will share his perspective. Fred? Hi.
Hi, thank you, Diane. So quickly, I would give a perspective of who we are vis-a-vis with the topic of our discussion today. The Volunteer Organization Society in Kenya is a network that brings a number of VIOs together, and that our objective has been to work with government to create enabling infrastructure. And when we are talking about enabling infrastructures, we are looking at policies, we are looking at strategy documents, we are looking at the laws that would promote volunteering in Kenya. And so when I look at this vis-a-vis corporate volunteering and delivering business objectives through a value-focused mission, then my work with the society has been to find a connect between the government and corporate companies and we as VIOs to find a common ground on which we can operate and work to promote volunteering. And while we do this, that businesses at the end of it want to make a profit, but we are in discussions every other time we engage that we look at how we also add value when we are working with these corporate companies. The other thing that we are trying to do as a network together with government is to do recognition for those companies that are doing exceedingly well and trying to find a best way of working with those who are willing to venture into volunteering. Just to mention that recently we had a recognition for COVID-19 Volunteers Response Award, in which we were able to work closely with some corporate companies who went out of their way to support within our communities when Kenya was peaking due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then again, what we're doing is to enhance transformative partnership with the corporate companies, so that even as we're talking volunteering, we are talking in that which involves the communities, the locals, the companies, the government, and that together we can sit on the table. And there, our focus has been to bring best practice opportunities. I would say that not so many of our corporate companies in Kenya may be so advanced in setting up corporate volunteering programs within their own institutions. But then this is the work that we are doing. And so as a VIO society in Kenya, we may want to bring best practice lessons from, example, Tata Group, from Dow Global, from Cyril's company, and we create a platform where we can learn together, on the best practices that companies could therefore adopt and use. So in the meantime, we're not working with so many of the corporate companies in Kenya, but we have a few, like one of the leading telephony companies in Kenya, Safaricom. So they've set up a Safaricom Foundation that is doing great work within communities, promoting volunteering, doing match funding where you raise a shilling for a shilling, and they come in and support that. So basically, I would just say that our work is to create that platform would enable corporate companies to make meaningful volunteering within communities, and also that they feel that it is not something that they're just doing because I think more often what I've learned is that it is never what companies can do for us, but what we can do together. And so my work and our work together as a team is to create that platform where we learn, where we recognize, where we develop the infrastructures that would then enhance volunteering in the country. Maybe finally, is just to highlight that in my understanding, I think delivering business objectives through a value-focused mission would be that which allows companies to make their profit, but also to appreciate the fact that the people that are probably within the communities where they work are the ones that are also sustaining their businesses. I'm glad to report that over the period of time, I'm seeing a very good working relationship between corporate companies, their employees who are gradually getting into volunteering, even though they still want to refer to it as corporate social responsibility. But there is a new wave of working together with communities. And so from our front, I'm here to learn together with the rest. We want to learn from what Dow Global is doing, Tata, Cyril's group, and the other colleagues, and see what we can bring back home as a best practice to also enable a stronger corporate volunteering sector in Kenya. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Fred. And that is such an important role to propel the movement of corporate volunteering within Kenya. Oftentimes it does take a convening organization to bring people together to share those best practices. And I think being part of IAVE is a component of that. So glad you're here, and I'm glad that you're part of this conversation. We're going to ask the audience to participate in a poll now. So if you look on your control panel, there is a poll. I'm going to launch it. Hopefully now you see it. And I'm going to invite all of you to participate in answering this. How do corporate volunteering programs add greater value? And you have a couple of options here. Corporate volunteering programs can add greater value by working in partnership with community stakeholders, by providing access to specialist skills, by enhancing the employee experience, by making a commitment to social inclusion, or by focusing interventions on sustainable outcomes. We'll leave the poll open for a few more seconds. Looks like partnership with community stakeholders is getting the most votes. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. We done? Okay, we're still going. Okay, we're going to close it now. Thank you all. We'll use the poll as our starting point for our Q&A with our panelists. So it looks like most people who have joined us are really interested in understanding more about how corporate volunteering can have impact by working in partnership with community stakeholders. So I was wondering, maybe Justin, if you wanted to start to take your perspective on that and how you've seen the impact with community stakeholders through corporate volunteering.
Great, thank you. I mean, for us, it really is the foundation. A lot of our facilities aren't in the big cities. They're in smaller communities around the world. And so we really have to work hard with our networking and connecting and building relationships with area schools, area nonprofits, and to really work together for community change. That's at the community level, but I'd say globally as well, it's equally as important. As I mentioned, our pulling our weight effort. This is an effort that truly embraces partnership. We know that the issue of plastic waste is not something that we can solve alone. And so we work with organizations like the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, not just on their all-together global cleanup, so the volunteer side, but also building a stronger infrastructure to help solve plastic waste and build a circular economy. And that spans out to communities all around the world where we're partnering with different environmental organizations, different volunteer organizations, different cleanup efforts, but also education campaigns too, that help educate students and parents about plastic waste and waste in general. So partnership is critical, as I would say, is the underlying point.
Fred, your perspective coming at it from being a convening platform, how are you seeing the partnerships with community stakeholders evolving in Kenya? Oh, I think you might be muted.
Thank you very much, Jan. I think from my end, I am not. I am unmuted from my end.
You're good. Yes.
We are good? Okay,
yes,
thank
we're
you.
good.
So I think I agree with Justin that this is the foundation. Partnerships is the foundation. One, this poll is appreciating that there is resources within communities. There is knowledge and skills within communities. There's the willingness within communities. There is the power within the communities. And so for me, I want to agree absolutely, even from the experiences that we've had and what we are building upon is appreciating that which we can do together, because then we bring out the best in us. And with that, we have a shared common value. We have a shared common objective. We can decide together as a people, corporate companies, governments, and the civil society organizations, we can move forward. And this is why I mentioned that earlier, that I've seen a change. There's kind of a paradigm shift within the corporate sector in Kenya. They are no longer just taking products to communities like it used to be. I remember more often you would find that a corporate company would set up one day or Saturday, they'll go to a community and just do one-off activity. And they never followed up. So even if it was tree planting, for example, they would go plant trees within a school and they're gone. And no one was there to take care of the trees. But today what I'm seeing is that they're going to communities. They're trying to understand what is it that communities need so that the communities together prioritize as a team, that every one of us have a sense of ownership. This is the foundation, partnerships. So that's my perspective from Kenya.
And Lonneke, you shared those two models, the top down, bottoms up, but partnership to me would mean you need to figure out how to bring those both together. Can you explain like when it can be both maybe?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really important that in every corporate volunteering program, the community need is, of course, at the center of the program. I mean, that's why you have a corporate volunteering program to begin with. I feel, but that's my personal opinion. I must say. But I would also like to echo here that I feel that we have to acknowledge, as as companies, we have to acknowledge that the nonprofits are the experts on the social issues, right? So if you talk about, for instance, the pollution issue, Dow is not a pollution company. So they need these community experts, these nonprofit organizations within the community who are experts in the field on this particular social issue to collaborate, to jointly try to do something about that particular social issue. So it all begins with acknowledging that these nonprofits are the experts on these social issues. And I think that's a very, very important element in building these partnerships.
Kinjal, I see you nodding. Is there something you'd like to add from your perspective?
No, rightly said by all the panelists, where however global the program is, the idea is to keep the community at the center of everything that we do, because in the end, they are the ones who are being volunteered upon. And they are the ones who are going to reap the benefits along with the corporate volunteers. So it is very important to take everybody's ideas and expertise into play while designing these corporate volunteering programs or initiatives.
Well, as we look at the poll a little bit further, and the next highest rated question or opportunity here is about providing specialist skills. So skills-based volunteering, maybe we can put those two things together, partnership with community stakeholders. But from a corporate standpoint, we do have talented employees with specialist skills that, if maybe you can bring that together in partnership with community stakeholders, can really move the needle against a social issue. Cyril, I was wondering at Salesforce, where you've seen maybe that happen, where you've identified a community need and then leveraged the skills of your employees. Being based in the San Francisco Bay Area, I remember back a few years ago, there was from Salesforce an adoption of a particular community in San Francisco, and getting behind that district with the schools and families and a total kind of community embrace. But it really was also through skills-based volunteering that people were getting engaged. So I'm wondering your perspective from Salesforce, how you're seeing that manifest, not just in headquarters here in the Bay Area, but maybe where you are or around the world, where skills are aligning to the community needs.
Yeah, I'll give you a topical one. So, we're all in the year of COVID, and we're all managing through it. So in Ireland, we're in our second lockdown. So my world consists of everything within 5 kilometers is my world at the moment. But when we had our first lockdown back in March, we had to get community testing centres up and running across the country very quickly. Volunteer Ireland were asked to help set that up, and they needed to very quickly spin up a Salesforce community to enable the volunteers to manage other volunteers to do the COVID testing in sporting arenas, etc., around the country. There was 25 different centres, and one of our implementation consultants in Dublin actually got involved and helped build that community for them and had it up and running in a week. So there's an example of a skills-based volunteering impacting the ability to do COVID testing across the entire country. And another team that work in Tableau, who have an office in Dublin, they built a map of all of the COVID volunteering opportunities across the entire country, and that's still running. I actually saw a tweet about it there earlier today, where you can actually click in all the COVID volunteering across the country in an interactive map and then sign up for that volunteering. And that was another pro bono deployment by another team within Salesforce. So they're using their Salesforce skills to help nonprofits across the globe use technology to drive impact and change.
That's terrific and so meaningful right now. Thank you. Kinjal, all those employees leveraging their skills. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at Tata.
So for us also, when COVID started, and it was around May, when everybody was, I think, at home for about 2 months, and we were going to launch this program. The first question that was asked was like, can we do volunteering, and can we do something like this at that time? And that was a very important question to ask, because however, as a manager, we might feel that, we want to continue the program, but what about employees who are already facing personal issues? They have to deal with work from home. For many, it was a very new thing. But when we launched it, and the kind of response that we got was overwhelming, where we had many people, more than the ones who have ever participated in such a program. And we realized that people are more than willing to do. It's just an opportunity to provide. On the flip side, when we were reaching out to the non-profits, and because the idea is to build capabilities of these organizations who are doing some amazing work, we realized that many had to pivot to many were about to shut shop, many were about to pivot to completely new programs, because they knew that the funds available will be much lesser, and the communities are still suffering. So we realized that strategy, and that is one of the brainstorming sessions that we had with the non-profits, where they realized that strategy is going to be very important, and looking at like a 5-year or 10-year strategy, keeping this in mind, that this is something, is a normal situation that we're going to live with. So that is where I think our volunteers started helping them. Many have been offered a post, a board advisory role now, for them to take some action on board, and that is something for us as a volunteering manager, very proud moment to see that these organizations who are struggling, and the non-profit and the volunteers who are willing to give their skills, coming together, is working out. So I think that's the beauty of a corporate volunteering program, to help such organizations.
Again, in my experience, oftentimes the challenge is that some of the NGOs and nonprofits don't actually understand what the skills are of the corporate volunteers. And I work at Google, and we'd often be asked to build websites, and while we are a search engine, we're not necessarily a website builder, but everybody equated that we need it. So that skills mapping was a challenge. Has anybody figured out how to do that well on the panel?
Well, I think I can chime in a little bit here. I mean, I think there's one side of it is what employees can give, but the flip side of it is, what can employees learn, and how can it impact somebody's own career? And so, I think that's one of the big challenges is, as much as nonprofits may not understand the corporate language, the same is sometimes true for companies not understanding the flip side. And so one thing that I'm excited about that we have brought on board this year, one from a need perspective, but it's worked out because of COVID, is a new certificate of board education for our employees, to really learn the lingo of nonprofit partners, especially those that are serving on boards, but also to make sure that they have the skills to effectively serve. My guess is there's a lot of folks on the line right now that are on different nonprofit boards, and it's not a walk in the park. There's a lot of risk, and so we've really worked hard to invest in programming for our employees to somewhat upskill them in being effective board members. So we're looking forward to see how this program can grow in the weeks, months, and years to come.
That really is a beautiful segue to enhancing the employee experience, Justin, because volunteering can, like you said, work both ways. It is giving of skills, but it's also learning of skills and building that empathetic muscle that I think is hopefully, if we could get everybody volunteering, we'd have a more empathetic and understanding world, which is why I volunteer for IAVE. I just think it's super important to create a kinder kinder place for all of us to live. Anyone else thinking about the employee experience side of things? I think, you know, Kinjal, you've talked a little bit about like how your employees are getting involved in all the different aspects in your volunteer days and your volunteer weeks, but this sense of like, does that make not only build their skills, but does it create some sense of corporate culture, some sense of identity with being part of Tata doing good things in the world? Same for you, Cyril. I mean, you just motivate and move so many volunteers through the Salesforce programs. I'd love to hear from both of you about the employee experience, how it's enriched through corporate volunteering.
Yes, so, you know, like 88% of employees, you know, feel much happier if they're given a mission that helps them help a cause, or the environment, for example. The environment's very topical these days. So the, you know, Salesforce is now ranked as one of the top companies in the world, regularly features in the top 10 for employee experience. And part of that is because we empower the employees. We give them 7 days paid time off, which is quite a lot of time to give to an employee. It's quite an expense to do skills-based volunteering, like the example I mentioned earlier with Volunteer Ireland. We also give them $5,000 matching. So, for example, I sponsor 4 girls in Nairobi. It's education. We support a school called St. Martin's in Nairobi, and we have for the last 15 years, and we sponsor over 500 children's education out there. So we form long-term relations where employees get to give back, and you know, I get a regular update from the students that I sponsor. So you build that relationship, you know, and my children are involved, and they also get to read those letters. So you get the family, you know, and it all creates an environment where you feel you're having a good impact on the world, which is probably what we all want to do. You know, your legacy is what you did while you're on the planet. Hopefully we'd all like to think we're leaving it in a better place than when we found it, never so more than this year. So that employee wellness, you know, means that the employees, the culture is what you do, not what you talk about. So we encourage your employees to go out and find a cause that they're passionate about and then go and make that happen. You know, every culture is different. I remember in France, we struggled to get some of the employees engaged in our traditional non-profit engagements. So they're always being very passionate about technology in France. So we started a Coder Dojo coding club in France, and it became our top club because all of the French employees, you know, children and how to code. And we started that, and it took off in France. But we also run the same coding clubs in St. Martin's in Nairobi. So it's to give everyone that equal opportunity to learn coding that could give them a new start in a new career.
That's terrific. And Kenjal, employee pride or sense of culture, skills enhancement, how are you seeing the employee experience being enhanced through volunteering?
So in both the programs, the involvement of employees is much larger. One is that because it's a global program, we try to make it localized as much as possible, which is done by these volunteer champions in every location or every geography or company, whatever we call that. And they first take into account, of course, the community needs, but also the volunteers. What is it that they are interested in doing? What is it that actually brings them joy? Are there team-based activities? Would they like to do individual activities? Would they want to do something for the environment or animals or anything like that? And that's why, unlike other colleagues here who are focusing on one program, for us it's a very wide range because we are talking about 700,000 employees with varied interest and causes and issues in their own local community. So we give them a chance to explore that. In growing age specifically for skill-based, we ask them at the beginning, right when they are starting out, what is your personal goal? Why are you taking up this project? And what is it that you're going to do to be able to achieve that throughout the project that you're working on? And that is something that we measure at the end of it. And very proud to say that about 92% report that they have been able to achieve their personal goals that they had set out at the beginning of the project start. So that is something that is very exciting to see that employees are encouraged and willing to do something. It's just to point them in the right direction and give them a chance to do something about that.
Thank you. I'm interested in something, Fred, you were mentioning the fact that and we talked a little bit about this as well, about partnerships, about staying engaged, sustainable support for our communities. Fred, can you give some perspective? I mean, you mentioned you plant the trees, but somebody has to care for them afterwards. That any examples or any hopes you may have for what the corporate sector could do or are doing to have a more sustained support to create systemic change in your communities?
So it's raining here, and I didn't get you so clearly. Maybe if I picked you, checking any examples, if you may just want to come up again a little bit.
Yes, I'm just wondering if you have any examples of where you've seen sustained corporate commitment to your communities and what that value has been. Because you were mentioning, you know, the trees being planted but then not being cared for. So wondering if you've seen it working.
Yeah, we've seen a gradual change where these partnerships are. There are very few, but the few that are existing kind of sustainable in a way. What I've seen a few corporate companies doing is that they initiate projects together with communities. For example, if a corporate company builds a water point within the informal sectors, settlements in our cities, for example, in Nairobi, where I work from, then you find a way by collaborate that the water point generates a little bit of resources got from the community when they do the water purchase. And then the corporate company is also putting in a little bit of resources to do the maintenance work so that these projects, as it were in the past, they would come build a water point, for example, and no one is responsible for it. Within no time, it is broken down, and then it remains and doesn't benefit the communities. So I've seen that. In the agricultural sector, for example, I've seen, for example, Safaricom, which is a leading telephony, and I use Safaricom because we are working closely with them. They've gone into a rural local community. They've ventured into crop farming, and they're working with communities to make sure that it is from the preparation of the land to the harvesting time, and also trying to even support in finding market access. So for me, I see that then brings a complete chain where there is an aspect of sustainability. If I just went to give those two examples, how it is done. In the past, they would come give the farm inputs and they are done, you know, so no one would want to bother about what happened next. So these are some of the things that we are seeing, and the reason for why I say we may learn from colleagues who have been doing more of this from time to time, and therefore this is such an exciting platform for me to be able to convene such gatherings that we can now learn from colleagues this over a period of time.
Well, I think, Lonneke, I might just toss it to you to say a few words, but for me, this idea and the concept that the foundation is built on a partnership with our communities, that it needs to be adding real value to a social issue, and that, you know, the employees get a good experience out of it, but the communities get sustained support. So we can have the impact that we all hope to have. I think these are some of the transformations I've seen just over in the past 15, 20 years in corporate volunteering that used to be one and done and walk away. And now we're really trying to look more holistically at what our efforts can do both internally and externally as we're volunteering. Lonneke, just a quick wrap up word, and then I'm going to close this out.
No, I fully agree with you, Diane. That was also what I was thinking about. Like we've gone from one-off projects to more sustained involvement, and I see that all over the world that organizations are doing that much more than did before. And I think the most important thing is that you really have to be both sides really have to be a little bit patient with each other. Just have a little bit patience with each other, really invest in a relationship with each other, build trust among each other, and you get such a relationship. And I think in the long term, that's really, really important.
Fantastic. I want to thank you all for being a part of this conversation, and thank you for everybody who participated in the poll, which helped us land on our process today. And thank you for your patience with me. I don't think I had enough caffeine this morning, and it's a new tool for me using this platform. So thanks for your patience with me. I'm going to close this out with a final reminder that this is part of a series of webinars that IAVE is hosting. The next one will be on November 18th. It's on the big topic of measurement and impact, something we all struggle with. No matter what your volunteering program is trying to do, it's very hard to measure the impact of it. And so we'll spend some time on November 18th on that topic. I hope you'll join us, and thank you for being a part of IAVE. We are a global network focused on volunteering, and we really appreciate that you're part of it with us. Let's make the world a better place together. Thanks.